Good morning, children. September has been a really good month for buying books. I kind of hit that bug again where I'm buying more than I'm reading at the moment. I've only done about 8 books so far this month, and I'm already on having bought 22 books this month. But there are ones I'm really excited about. Fall's a great time for reading for me. I know I'm not going to get to most of these next month because that's my Halloween reads. I have to apologize in advance. My coffee maker has broken and I'm going through this uncaffeinated. I feel like every time I get on, I'm complaining about something, but this is kind of a big complaint. I'm back at home from house sitting and my coffee maker was. I can't even talk about it. Anyways, first I'm going to get into the books that I bought from work, which I work at a bookstore, so I get them fairly cheap, and I get to see the fairly cheap ones whenever they come in. That's where most of my buying comes from. So let's get into it. So this month I've been doing a lot of research for Greek mythology. That was for my last video whenever I was comparing Song of Achilles to Silence of the Girls. For that, I bought myself a copy of Edith Hamilton's Mythology, which I was really surprised to learn I didn't have already, because this is all stuff I've read before. I just don't know where I read it, or if maybe I lent out my copy or something. But anyways, I bought it for some reference on stuff, and I'm really excited to get more into Greek mythology. Next one I was really excited to see because I had recently read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and The Blind Assassin has come across my path. I'm really excited to read that one as well. I'm not sure what it's about. Like I've said before, I try not to look too much into things before I start reading them because I like to be surprised. So we'll see. Hopefully this will be in my November reads, but the next one I bought mainly for the title. I didn't know till afterwards that it was actually pretty popular at some point, which makes sense because it came out in 2007 and I was still pretty young then, probably wouldn't have heard of a lot of adult books coming out, and it is An Arsonist's Guide to Writers' Homes in New England. Good morning, children. This is Kristen from the future because past Kristen very stupidly put a bucket in front of the camera so she could avoid looking at her face like the narcissist she is the entire time while filming, which kind of ruined my last shot, as you could see a bucket like right there the entire time. So I, Kristen of the future, will reluctantly finish off this book haul. I think last I was talking about An Arsonist Guides to Writers' Home in New England. This is one I mainly bought because I absolutely adore dark comedies, and though I am about 10 years too late on the hype for it, I am very ready to read it. And then next on my list, since I'm getting more into mystery thrillers, I snagged a couple that looked interesting to me because they were super cheap at work, and that was The Turnaround, and that was The Perfect Girl. One that takes place in DC during the 70s and one that takes place at a recital. I'm excited to get into both of these. I picked up The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware, and it's about a mystery that takes place on a cruise ship, which is perfect because it is an isolated place with a ton of people. A lot could happen. I'm excited for the suspensefulness of it. Another one I was lucky to pick up in hardback because I think the paperback's going to be coming out soon. That was Moonglow by Michael Chabon. And as far as I can tell, this is a story about an old man recounting his life to his grandson, which for most people doesn't seem like a really huge plot, but I really love these like in-depth life studies on people, especially ones looking back from like the big picture of things. So I'm hoping for a really great in-depth character study with that one. I picked up the young adult, The Names They Gave Us by Emery Lord. This one I just picked up for the cover. I thought it was super pretty. These are like all of my favorite colors. And it is following a girl whose mom is dying of cancer, which is a pretty heavy topic. So I'll have to read this whenever I feel like being depressed, which is often. We'll see. Then other ones I picked up this month are ones that I'm adding to my Halloween reads for next month. Which makes like 28 now that I'm going to have to narrow down or try to cram all into October, which is impossible. So I picked up another Stephen King because I'm trying to get more into his stuff. I read The Green Mile this month, and that's for next video. I read The Green Mile this month, so I had to pick up another one, and that was The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. This takes place with one character in one setting, and it's this girl that's lost in the woods, and it's supposed to be incredibly suspenseful. It's a short book. I feel like that's not something you can make very long, but she loves Tom Gordon, who I think is a baseball player, because I know all about sports, but she loves this sports person, and I guess she starts imagining after a while that he's there with her in the woods, and together they come across some like really weird stuff, starting off with like dead, like mangled animals, and we get to see hopefully what is happening to them and what is going to happen to the girl who loved Tom Gordon. These other ones were just sort of impulse buys because they just looked like a lot of fun, and that was Dare to Be Scared and Double Dare to Be Scared. These are Goosebumps-esque type stories for kids, and it's just a bunch of little short stories that are supposed to be spooky. And I really liked the illustrations because they look really unsettling. And if you know me, I love unsettling children's books. So I'm excited to just throw these in there. They'll be quick reads to add to the spooky atmosphere of the month. Another one I picked up that I've been wanting to read for a while, not technically a Halloween one, more of a slasher, but really excited to read American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. For some reason I wanted to say Robert. Well, I guess Brett's kind of part of Robert. No, it's not. Okay, so American Psycho, absolutely adored the movie. I love dark comedies, and I love slasher stuff, so really excited to read the book, hopefully getting more in depth with the character. I'm not expecting an ending less ambiguous than the movie. Honestly, if this has more answers in the movie, I'll probably be a little mad. What I want is more character and just more laughs and more blood. Next one I bought because it is our book club read for the month, and that is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski, this guy, who is incredibly popular in the horror genre. I went into this not knowing anything. Normally with book club, I tell like my people what everything's going to be about before we voted on it. This one, I just showed them the formatting of it. If you go through this, it is told in like a lot of weird different ways. Like there's a page where all of the handwriting is like backwards. There's pages just full of X's. It's just very strange formatting, and there's a bunch of poetry partway through it. It's supposed to be really freaky. Ooh. Sorry, a bird just hit my window. But yeah, no. Excited about this one. Hopefully it's pretty good and brings up great discussion. He also has written the Familiar series, which if I like this, I plan on getting into. Another one I've been hearing a lot of hype about lately. It's not exactly horror. I think it's more of a thriller, I think. And that is The Paying Guests by Sarah Waters. And this takes place in a boarding house run by a single mother and her daughter who, you know, open up their house to, like, let people stay there for, like, the night or whatever. They rent things to people, and I can see where this can go wrong in a lot of ways. So I am prematurely biting my fingernails. It's a fairly long book. It's like 500-something pages, so I hope that I can squeeze it in my October TBR because I already have so many. And another one I really want to read for Halloween that's also very long is The Terror by Dan Simmons. This is a historical fiction that follows the 1845 Franklin expedition. True story, which a ship gets stuck in ice and then everybody from the ship mysteriously disappears. It's a mystery that hasn't been solved to this day. Most people think like it was a polar bear or something because there's like footprints of a monster or whatever. But this is going into it to see what may have happened, and it's a monster story I'm really excited about. It's like 750 pages long, and I really, really want to read it next month. So hopefully I'll be able to just fly through it, and the suspense just keeps me going. Then last but not least, I buy a lot of antique books and a lot of different versions of books I really love. And I stopped by an antique store with my parents this last week, and I was able to pick up a couple of 1800 copies of Shakespeare, and they're super old. They desperately need a book doctor. Like, I'm kind of horrified to open it because I feel like this whole thing's gonna fall apart any second. So until I can find someone who can kind of repair this, they are just going to sit on my shelf and not be touched because, yeah. Another one I was really excited to find, I found 2 different copies of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. One was a beautifully bound one. It doesn't have the year in it anywhere, but my absolute favorite thing about it is it's illustrated, but it's very heavily illustrated, and it has different styles of it, including colored illustrations. Look at the handsome Mr. Darcy. But I'm excited about this one. I own like 7 copies of Pride and Prejudice now. Definitely one of my favorites. My absolute favorite by Jane Austen for sure. But that's nothing compared to next, where I got another Wuthering Heights. I have like 23 copies of Wuthering Heights. It's always been a tradition. Every time I find a new bookstore, I get a copy of it. And then this one, sadly, is a newer, just fancy bound one. I was looking for a more antique one, but it's still going to look very pretty on my shelf. It's not illustrated or anything, but I'm okay with that. At this point, it's become kind of like an impulse thing to just keep buying Wuthering Heights. Also, in the same edition as that last Pride and Prejudice, I got a copy of Emma, and it is the Best Books edition. They're newer, they're newly printed. You can always tell by the page colors, but they're just really nice and fancy. I already own Emma, of course, but I have a problem. Another one I was really surprised to find at just a random antique store in the middle of nowhere was The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, which isn't why I was surprised to find it. This is actually an Easton Press edition of it, and if you go to their website, they're newly printed books, but they're like $200 each. It's ridiculous how much these things cost. Like, they're actually gold sprayed, and then they have like silk lining on the inside. Very fancily bound. They find all the best illustrations for it, or just make new ones. Oh, Snoopy. And though I don't buy these things for their worth, I was really mad to just open it up and see that they had written inside of it, which is fine in a book. Whenever I give books to friends that are like very personal to me or something like that, I'll always write a little note on the inside just to make sure they don't give it away. But this is like a $200 book. Who buys a $200 book and then writes in it, scribbly like, even if it... I'm sorry. I ranted for a bit too long and I had to cut that out, but you get my point. Oh. Okay, well, it's from a grandpa to a grandson. Darn it, I can't be mad at grandpas. They're so sweet. $200 books. Not that I care about worth or anything. It's not something I'm planning on selling at all anytime soon. But I just don't understand people. That kind of concludes my book haul for the month. I know there's still a couple of days left and something might come to me and I'll be all like, oh, I have a problem with buying these. So with that, you guys have a good one. I know I will. Awkward outro.